The type 1 diabetes is the most common form of diabetes in children, and the incidence of type 1 diabetes is rising worldwide. The incidence of type 1 diabetes per 1 lakh children per year ranges from very low zero point 0.1 in China and Venezuela to 36.8 in Sardinia and 36.5 in Finland, with approximately 30% of the patients developing symptoms after 18 years of the age. Countries with highest estimated number of new cases annually are USA 13,000, India 10,900, and Brazil 5,000. In India is in second position because it is not the per lakh population, but it is due to our population is very high, so the number of new cases annually is very high. In India, only 3 new cases of type 1 diabetes in per 1 lakh children of 0 to 14 years. So how can you say that there is that type 1 diabetes is have genetic contribution? The evidence for contribution of genetics of type 1 diabetes, the overall risk of type 1 diabetes in general population is 0.4%, but it is higher in relatives of the type 1 patients, and siblings of the patient have an average 6 to 7% lifetime risk. The risk of type 1 diabetes is 1.3 to 4% in children of a female patient. And particularly important is that 6 to 9% in children of the male patient. While the risk of type 1 diabetes is non-identical, twins are similar to that of the sibling, but it exceeds 70% in identical twins. So additional evidence for the contribution of genetic factors to the etiology of type 1 diabetes is the occurrence of autoimmune diabetes in association with genetic mutations. For example, the polyglandular syndrome type 1 APS1 is caused by mutation in the autoimmune regulator gene, which is critical for the establishment of immunological self-tolerance. And the mutation of the FOXP3 gene causing an X-linked syndrome that associates immune dysregulation, polyendocrinopathy, and enteropathy, that is IPEX syndrome. And FOXP3 is a transcription factor that is essential for the development and function of the regulatory T cells, which play a critical role in maintaining self-tolerance. So you can see that by seeing the data from the evidence that this type 1 diabetes have genetic contributions. If you can etiology of the type 1 diabetes, it can be divided into 3 stages in genetically suspected individual. The stage 1 is the triggering of beta cell autoimmunity with gradual beta cell destruction, but no dysglycemia or symptoms of diabetes is stage 1. In stage 2, the loss of beta cell function with slowly increasing HbA1c. That is the loss of first phase insulin release, reduced C-peptide levels, but no symptoms. This is stage 2. And in stage 3, the loss of beta cell secretory capacity with syndrome of diabetes. Here in stage 3, this beta cell secretory capacity may be lost due to some aggravating environmental factor. So etiology you can see to divide it into 3 parts: genetic, the environmental factor, and suspected environmental gene interaction. So coming to the proper genetics, 2 major approaches have mainly namely candidate gene association studies and genome-wide linkage analysis studies. The longitudinal studies of a newborn at increased genetic risk have demonstrated between the HLA and the first beta cell autoimmunity. So autoimmunity and first beta cell autoimmunity and HLA is been linked between this longitudinal study that is candidate gene association studies. But the large genome-wide association studies have identified not only the HLA, but more than 50 non-HLA genes which are associated with the type 1 diabetes mellitus. So genetics can be divided in practical purposes to two parts, the HLA related genes and the non-HLA genes. If you can see the HLA gene is a schematic diagram of HLA. This is the diagram of chromosome C6. This HLA region of chromosome 6 and the smaller part, that is a P part of 21, accounts for the approximately 50% of the familiar aggregation of the type 1 disease. And this HLA gene, this P region, P25 region, having three major components, the class 1, class 2, and class 3. And this class 2, particularly which is encircle HLA, DR, and DQ, are the mostly related with the genetics in the type 1 diabetes. So IIA, the insulin autoantibody as the first autoantibody is associated with HLA, DR4DQ8, and the GADA is associated with HLA, DR3 and DQ2. So the HLA, the highest risk of type 1 diabetes is the heterogeneity of the two high-risk HLA class. As I have said earlier that in HLA class 2, there is three HLA class 1, class 2, and class 3. The class 2 is very important. The heterogeneity of the two high-risk HLA class 2 haplotype, that is DR4DQ8, especially DRB104 and the DQA10301 and B10302, and the DR3DQ2, especially the DRB103 and DQA10501 and B10201, is highly associated with type 1 diabetes. So one or both of these haplotypes, that is DR4 DQ8 and the DR3 DQ2, one or both of these haplotypes are found in 95% of the individual with type 1 diabetes younger than the 30 years of age. And the concomitant inheritance of high-risk alleles and the haplotypes increases the risk by synergistic association of a single risk. Meaning by that, if both the HLA genes you are carrying, the chances of getting this autoimmunity is more, and if the both is there, the synergistic action is then in comparison to the single risk. So DQ8 is the mostly inherited with certain variants of DRB104, especially the DRB10401 and DRB10404 and DRB10402. But one thing is noted here that is highlighted in blue color, the DRB10403, which has negative associations. If this variation is there, the patient may not develop autoimmunity. So the triggering of insulin autoimmunity by environmental factor in DR4DQ8 haplotype is present years before the clinical diagnosis of the type 1 diabetes mellitus. So the DQ2 is mostly inherited with DRB103. The certain alleles confer higher and independent risk factor are DQB1 0302, DRB103, and DRB10401. The DR3DQ2 is usually associated with autoantibodies against gamma GADA triggered by the environmental factor. Some genes are protective in nature. The protective haplotypes are DQ6. The DQ6, especially DQA10102 or B10602. The DQ A10101 and B10503 and DQ A10202 and B103 are protective in nature. Other HLA class 2 like DPB1 and class 1 alleles have also been associated with type 1 diabetes. It is well established that HLA DRDQ types are related to immune response against virus or vaccine, and environmental contributes necessary to risk for beta cell autoimmunity, type 1 diabetes, or both. So the thing is that if you are harboring a gene, you are vulnerable to become a type 1 diabetes, but it is not necessary to you become a diabetic. There are many non-HLA genes. I've already said the sequencing of entire genome by genome wide association studies has confirmed a strong association with not only HLA, but more than 50 non-HLA genes. The type 1 diabetes mellitus non-HLA genetic factors are related to the function of immunocytes such as the T and B lymphocytes. The insulin genes, the INS, has the strongest association with type 1 diabetes mellitus. This insulin genes are present on chromosome 11. This insulin polymorphism regulates the amount of insulin mRNA in the thymus and are likely to influence the development of immune tolerance to the insulin. If the immune tolerance to the insulin is lost, you will develop autoimmunity against the insulin. The protein tyrosine phosphatase non-receptor type 20, that is PTPN22, on chromosome 1, P13, which encodes lymphoid-specific phosphatase, a suppressor of the T cell activation, is also associated with type 1 diabetes mellitus. So cytotoxic T lymphocytes associated with associated protein, that is CTLA4, that is RS3087243, which is a negative regulator of cytotoxic T cells. Altered post-transcription regulation could mediate the association between the CTLA4 polymorphism and type 1 diabetes mellitus. The abatacept, which is selectively bind to the CD80 and 86, blocks the interaction with CD28 and modulates co-stimulation and has been shown to transiently halt beta cell loss in individuals recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes mellitus. Other loci associated with type 1 diabetes are interleukin-2 receptor subunit alpha, protein tyrosine phosphatase, non-receptor type 2 interferon helicase, the basic leucine zipper transcription factor, the ubiquitous associated HS3 domain containing protein A. The most important is that is the insulin genes. So there is a possibility that you can score the genes according to when you can calculate that the patient can develop type 1 diabetes mellitus or autoimmunity or not. One of the current challenges is how to integrate the wealth of knowledge about type 1 diabetes genetics and apply it meaningfully for the diagnosis and risk assessment and to differentiate with monogenic diabetes and type 2 diabetes of young. The DAISY, the Diabetes Autoimmunity in the Young study, follows high-risk siblings and offsprings of individuals with type 1 diabetes, as well as newborn from the general population with high-risk HLA genes. In this study, 45% of the general population, the DAISY children with PTPN 22 RS24706601 type or HLA-DR34 and UBSS3RS11032A genotypes develop diabetes by age of 15 compared to the 3% of children with all other genotypes. So most recently, the extensor group developed a type 1 diabetes genetic scores to identify individuals who become insulin dependent among young adults with diabetes and discriminate type 1 diabetes from monogenic diabetes. So genetic and the stages of the diabetes, we have already described the status. The prospective studies such as DAISY and TEDdy, the environmental determinant of diabetes in young, follow children at increased risk of diabetes since birth and therefore assess the impact of genetic factor during disease progression. In a multivariate analysis adjusting the family history and a HLA-DR3/4 genotype in DAISY and PTPN22 and 2 UBSHA3A SNPs were associated with development of islet autoimmunity, while INS, UBASH3A, and IFIH1 were significantly associated with progression from islet autoimmunity to diabetes. The TEDdy participant carrying high-risk HLA genotype 4SNP achieved significant association to development of islet autoimmunity using time to event analysis, that is RS2476601 in PTPN and RS2292239 in ERB2 receptor tyrosine kinase, RS318450 in SS2B3 and RS100446 in INS. So the role of race and ethnicity, most of the current knowledge of type 1 diabetes genetics originate from the studies conducted in non-Hispanic whites population, in which the highest disease prevalence is observed. And however, type 1 diabetes is still the most frequent type of pediatric diabetes in all other racial and ethnic groups. Most studies find racial and ethnic difference in genetic, immunologic, metabolic, and clinical characteristics of type 1 diabetes. The search study revealed higher frequency of susceptibility of DRB1 haplotypes in non-Hispanic whites than Hispanic youth with type 1 diabetes, while DRB1 0405 and DQB1 0302 and DRB1 0507 and DQB1 0302 were more frequent in Hispanics than non-Hispanic whites. So different races have different genetic susceptibility, and type 1 diabetes diagnosis and prediction rely upon heavily on genetics. It will be important to consider the racial and ethnic differences in the genetics of type 1 diabetes. So to conclude, the decades of research shows that genetics play a key role in the etiology and pathogenesis of type 1 diabetes. Genetics of type 1 diabetes are complex and polygenic and modulated by imprinting, alternate splicing of islet ontogen mRNA, gene-to-gene interaction, and gene-environmental interaction through epigenetics modification or mediated by some virus like retrovirus. Besides genetic factor, BMI also contributes to the progression of type 1 diabetes mellitus. So a study of genetics of obesity is also important emerging additional factor, because the BMI contributes to the progression, not initiates the diabetes. The genetics could play a unique role as time-independent tools for the diagnosis of diabetes in the large and growing number of cases with unclear diagnosis, and converting our knowledge in type 1 diabetes genetics into tool is one of the great challenges, current challenges. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. BK Singh, and congratulations for an excellent talk. I'm sure all of you would agree that Dr. BK Singh has made this very complicated subject into a very simpler form by his excellent presentation. Before I open this for discussion, I just have a small query. Dr. Singh, is there any development in stem therapy towards the treatment of type 1 diabetes, since we are discussing genetics?
There are few stem cell therapy I know in type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes also. Particularly in the exact data I don't have, but this stem cell therapy is prevalent in South America, particularly in Brazil, where they have tried the stem cell therapy and they have some something gain from this stem cell, but it is not prevalent at all. Exact the incidence and how it happens and what is I exactly don't know, but there is some reports that come that in South America this stem cell therapy has been initiated.
Okay, sir. Thank you. We will take some quick.
Please, Dr. BK Singh, can you stop sharing?
Oh,
Can you
yes,
stop
sir.
sharing your slides?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can we take quick questions, one or two?
Are there any questions? There are no questions in the chat box, but I have a comment to make.
Sir, I have.
I think, yeah,
Yes,
Hemshankar,
sir.
you want to ask something? Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
please.
Sir, any point related to the islet cell transplantations?
That is a different
Actually-
thing.
I think
Actually-
Dr. Hemshankar, that is a different aspect, but I think Dr. BK Singh has done a wonderful job.
No,
with
that
a
I
very-
understand.
Yeah, he has a
Sir, sir.
it was a very complex
Okay.
subject, and
Yes.
he has definitely
Yeah.
raised the issues of the basically genetic issues. Otherwise, in the causation of type 1 diabetes, there are many environmental factors. Everybody
Yeah.
knows it's so many dietary factors, chemical causes, lots of things
Yeah.
are emerging. But well, the
Yeah.
genetics are very, very important at present time. And I think he has told that patient expressing the DR3 are basically at the risk of developing other autoimmune endocrinopathies like celiac disease. So definitely this was a wonderful talk. I must congratulate Dr. BK Singh for this excellent talk. Thank you.
Sir, one thing I want to comment from the question raised by Dr. Hemshankar Sharma, sir. Islet therapy, islet transplantation therapy is there, but the problem is the immunity. There is a autoimmunity against these islet cells, and definitely we have not able to get most of the islet and transplantation become useless after 1 year because of the there is a immunity, there is a immune destruction of the islet cells after transplanting that.
No, I
That-
wanted to
that
only know
happened.
whether they are genetically controlled.
Pardon, sir?
Is there any correlation between the genetic effects and the islet cell transplantations? And why they are getting failure?
Because you said
Immunorejection. That
the
is
one thing-
immunorejection. That
the
is
immune
basically
reaction, sir.
immunorejection. Nothing to do with genetics. That's immunorejection.
Sir, one thing is there, the immune tolerance is a particular subject. When there are many bacteria present in your gut, but our immune system does not kill that particular bacteria because there is a immune tolerance developed after that. But
Correct.
this disease is this autoimmunity. It is one of the way why we can say that your immune tolerance is lost. Once you find that the gene responsible for this immune tolerance, or you develop the immune tolerance to that particular islet transplantation, or you can say the gene therapy. Gene therapy fails because you don't have the carrier particle which can convey these genes to the particular party. If you can try the stem cell therapy, in stem cell therapy, you inject this stem cells to the pancreas, and the pancreas cells get converted, the alpha cells get converted to the beta cells, and they produces the insulin. But the factor is that our body does not recognize this particular the particular cells, and they try to kill it. That is the most difficult part of this. Any gene therapy or stem cell therapy or any therapy which is going on. Once you develop that immune tolerance, we are able to get we can correct the type 1 diabetes or definitely.
Okay, thank you, sir. We
Thank
conclude
you,
here.
Dr. BK Singh.
Thank you.
I think
We
this was a
conclude.
very, very complicated topic. And unfortunately, most of us have not studied this during our MBBS days. And let me tell you that genetics and molecular biology is the future of medicine. And I will request Dr. BK Singh that when the next committee takes over, to have one scientific session of 2 hours at least to tell us about the basics of genetics, so that we can know tomorrow when you talk, we'll be able to understand you in a much better way.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Thank you all the chairpersons for a wonderful chairing the session, and
Wonderful
excellent
talk.
speakers. excellent speakers, Dr. N.K. Singh, Dr. Arvinda Jagdisha, Dr. Anuradha Kapoor, and of course, Dr. B.K. Singh. The topics were covered extensively. Now from the basics of diabetes, now let's shift to cardiology in practice. And here we have, in this session, we have three